Good morning, world. Because the symptoms of depression are not readily or openly visible to the outside world, regardless of how the person experiencing it feels. Sometimes it feels like it seems that people feel more comfortable, people feel more entitled to have an opinion, share their thoughts, and sometimes even judgment of how a person is handling their depression. And of course, those thoughts and opinions are usually not the most helpful things you could say. And that's why today we're talking about 5 things you should never say to a person battling depression. First being that snap out of it, cheer up, buck up. Honestly, the person experiencing depression is doing everything they can, using up all the energy that they can gather, all the time that they can come up with to do what they can to beat this depression. So if snapping out of it was an option, they would have done that already. A person going through depression cannot just get up one day and decide, hey, I no longer have depression. They can't do that any more than a person can get up one day and say, hey, I no longer have diabetes, I no longer have high blood pressure, or I no longer have this cold. So if they can't do that with any other illness, they certainly cannot do that with depression. 2, other people have it worse than you, or other people have bigger problems. That's probably true, but because problems or issues are not mutually exclusive, the other people having bigger issues does not mean that this particular person cannot have their depression. And people often have that misconception that depression is because you should be more grateful for the things that you have. A person having depression is grateful. They often are very grateful for their blessings, but their blessings does not mean that they do not get to have that depression. A person experiencing depression is no less grateful than that person who has a cold or that person who has diabetes. But because depression is not a reflection of gratitude, it is actually an illness. That is why a person can be super grateful and still experience depression. And of course, who died and made you king of who gets to be sick? 3, if I were you, I would actually stop there, because usually when it comes to dealing with other people's issues, other people's problems, a sentence that starts with if I were you, I don't recall ever hearing it coming up with something helpful. So you should probably stop there. When people say if I were you, there's that automatic judgment of, hey, you're not doing this right, I would do this better. If you were the one experiencing that depressive symptom, you probably would not be having the same opinions that you do now that the problem is someone else's, now that someone else is experiencing the pain and you're looking at it from an outside view. And even if you were in that same position and you would have done things the way you do, each person has the right to deal with their problems, to deal with their issues the way they handle their issues. So you do not get to decide how a person handles their problems. They have that right, and you need to step out of it and allow them the opportunity to handle their issues. How do you think it makes other people feel or look? The people who really matter, the friends and family who really care about this person, their only thought or concern is helping their loved one get better. They don't have the time or energy at this point to be investing in how this person being sick make them feel. And anyone who's concerned about how someone else's illness is making them feel is really not someone that person should be concerning themselves with anyway. And the other part of it is that a person experiencing depression is usually spending a lot of time beating themselves up and thinking about how their depression is impacting their work, their life at home, everything they do, because everything they do is impacted by the depression, and they really do not need you to add to the pressure. And finally, pray on it. Give it to God. You're a Christian, you're a Muslim, you're Jewish. Regardless of your faith, regardless of your religion, it does not matter. Regardless, your priest, your pastor, your rabbi, they all can, and probably many of them have suffered from depression. But because our society makes it seem sometimes that depression is a reflection of your faith, sometimes it makes it harder for people to reach out and get help because, hey, I don't want people to think that my faith is not strong enough. Regardless of the depth of your faith, you can still experience depression. And we need to understand that giving it to God is not the only thing that you need to do. God provides you with resources. Just as you would not just say, hey, God, here's my high blood pressure. I'm going to leave the medication here. Here's my high blood pressure. You handle it. God gave you, you have high blood pressure and you have medication, so you take medication. So that by the same token, if you have depression, you use the resources available to help you deal with your depression. And we need to keep remembering that depression is not a reflection of the depth of somebody's faith. And giving it to God is more, we need to be doing more than just giving it to God. We need to be using the resources that God has given in order to help people battle those situations. Quick recap. 1, if snapping out of it or cheering up was an option, they would have done it already. 2, yes, it's possible that other people have bigger issues, but just because other people have bigger issues does not mean that this person does not get to have their issue. If I were you, I would stop there, because that usually never is helpful. So don't offer that. How it makes others feel. The ones who really matter are only concerned with helping the person get better, so they shouldn't be worried about how it makes others feel. And praying on it. Yes, you can definitely pray, but while you're praying, you should also be investing effort, energy, and resources into getting better using the resources that are available to us. And of course, if it gets to be too much, there's always help. I always encourage you to please reach out to someone and get some help. And that is all we have for today. Good morning, world. Have an awesome day.